All right. Well, thank you, everybody. It's really great to be here. As was said, I'm Dr. Maurer. I'm the Assistant Dean for Admissions here at the College of Human Medicine at Michigan State University. In that role, I'm ultimately responsible for reading over 6,000 applications a year for 200 spots. So I do have a little bit of experience reading applications, and so hopefully what we can do today is provide you with a little bit of some insight on how to best make that personal statement both meaningful to you and very meaningful and receptive to those of us who need to read them. Okay, so so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. As my PowerPoint here says, I have 15 pointers to pass on to you today, okay? For those of you who are here live, I have to apologize. I have gone through 400 handouts already, and clearly I probably needed to bring about 800. To help you out. But nonetheless, I do apologize for not being able to provide that for you. The other thing that I'll apologize for is actually having 15 pointers. For those of us who are academics and faculty who give lectures, they teach us that anything more than about 3 points in a lecture, nobody will remember. So anything above and beyond that. So I do apologize, but I will tell you this much: the pointers are very straightforward and easy to write down. And some of them, I even have to say, I'm embarrassed to tell you that I have to actually have these as pointers, and I'll point them out as I go, because I think some of what I have to convey today is a little bit of some common sense. Okay, some of it isn't, but some of it is, and it's that common sense stuff that I sort of feel like I do need to say, because I see examples of common sense not being taken into account when people are writing their personal statements and sending them in for us to read. So anyway, we'll keep moving here. So the first thing, when you are getting ready to write your personal statement, absolutely, positively, you have to do this. You need to develop an outline, okay? Not an outline of a turkey, but an outline for your essay, okay? It's really, really critical and important that you do it, okay? Because putting forth an outline allows you to organize your thought processes and what you want to convey before you actually write it. If you don't put an outline together, you risk forgetting something. Forgetting something that is really, probably really important that you wanted to include in that statement. And the next thing you know, you've hit submit and you go, oh crap, I forgot to talk about that one experience that demonstrated compassion, okay? So absolutely, come up with an outline first, okay? It doesn't have to be a 20-point outline, but, you know, 5 points that you want to get across. All right, so very important. Please do that. Second thing, okay, what I say here is don't just cover all your bases. Touch on the one that matters, and perhaps the one that matters most, okay? As part of your medical school application, you're going to get the opportunity in other areas to put forth your resume, okay? And the way the application is set up, it'll actually give you the opportunity to describe those things on your resume in a meaningful manner and to develop them with a little bit of some depth, okay? The personal statement is not the place to rehash your resume, okay? It is the place, though, to sort of touch on one base, one topic, one theme, and weave that theme throughout the content of that written statement, okay? Those are the types of written statements or personal statements that gather and grab our attention as readers, okay? The personal statements that are just rehashing everything that we've already seen in your resume section of the application, it's boring, okay? We've already read it once before. It's already been developed there. It comes across as being sort of a cut and paste sort of manner, and you don't want anyone to think that all you did on your personal statement was cut and paste, okay? So please don't use the personal statement to rehash your resume. Pick one common theme that maybe was a part of that experience section, and incorporate that and weave that into your personal statement. Okay, so this is one of those pointers that I feel silly that I have to actually bring to your attention, but I see errors, too many errors made, that if I don't, I would be doing you guys a disservice. So at some level, somewhere in your personal statement, you absolutely have to tell us why you want to go to medical school, okay? And beyond that, what is it about medicine that is appealing to you, okay? I feel silly that I have to tell you guys to include that in your personal statement, but I'm telling you, I see personal statements time after time after time that when I'm done reading them, I go, I still don't know why this guy wants to be a doctor, okay? So somewhere in the content of that personal statement, you have to communicate to us why it is that you want to be a doctor and why medicine is the best fit, career fit for you, all right? If you're done reading your personal statement and you don't think that message is conveyed, then you need to keep working on it. If you have someone else read your personal statement and they come back and tell you, I'm not sure I completely understand why you want to be a doctor, then you got to go back and keep working on it, okay? Pointer number 4, write about a personal story of growth and learning. The personal statement, when you get right down to it, I think the thing about the personal statement that helps you as a candidate is that it allows you the opportunity to start developing and conveying to admissions offices and admissions committees what your personal attributes and characteristics are, okay? This is where we're going to start to get a feel for the humanistic nature that you bring to the table and that you bring to your application that is going to be consistent with being a great doctor someday, okay? So a great way to do that is talking about your personal story, okay? The experiences that you've had in your life that have allowed you to grow and develop and mature, and to develop those personal characteristics that are compatible, if not essential, in being a great doctor someday, okay? So please use that statement to convey your personal story, okay? All right, point number 5. Discuss themes in your statement that have not been developed elsewhere, okay? So, your application, as I mentioned, is going to give you the opportunity to convey your resume and the experiences that you've had, okay? That format, though, may not be an all-encompassing format that gives you the opportunity to talk about your life and the experiences that you've had that have been very formative in your decision to becoming a physician someday. So, lots of times people might have certain experiences that have nothing, at least on the surface, nothing that seems that it has anything to do with a career in medicine. But it's through these sort of non-medical experiences people find commonalities between that theme and being a care provider. And so it's through those sorts of experiences that may not be listed on your resume that you're going to want to try to bring up in your personal statement. Again, gives us in admissions a better feel and a better, allows you to present yourself in a more robust manner. We don't want you to just rehash again information that's already in your personal statement. Yes?
Can you give some examples of what themes are that you're talking about specifically?
Okay, so the ones that have come up with other people this afternoon, they said, well, what about like, can I convey a theme of music and weave that into my personal statement and use that in an appropriate manner to convey the message of who I am, what are the characteristics I bring to the table, and why that is I want to be a doctor? And the answer is yes. Okay, so I'm not a musician, so I'm not really sure personally, what music and medicine might have in common. But for someone who has a strong music background and an interest in science and being a healthcare provider, they're in a position to see how those two things sort of weave together and what are the commonalities between that. So this particular person is going to use a theme of music in order to weave that through the content and the personal story of growth in telling us why they want to be a doctor someday. Okay.
So is theme just an abstract kind of idea of what you are as a person, or is it more like a specific experience that you've had?
It could be either. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be any of those things. Okay, it could be, as you said, sort of an abstract thing. Maybe you had sort of this really life-altering experience growing up, again, that didn't lend itself to putting in sort of in the resume. Okay, so maybe that life-altering experience was a boating accident. Okay, and there was a horrible outcome, and you were a part of that outcome, or you witnessed that, and that's how you start off your personal statement, with some sort of subject catching idea. Okay, and so you then weave that sort of concept into the content in your personal story, and how that sort of initiated a cascade of things in your life that then lent you to make the decision to become a doctor someday. So yes.
So along the same lines of that, how creative can you be, or non-conventional in your approach to writing the statement?
I think most of us who take the personal statement seriously love to see creativity, okay? But you don't want to be so wacko, though, on this personal statement that it leaves the reader wondering, is this person too out there, too weird? Does that make sense?
Where to draw the line?
Yeah, well, that's where I think in the end, you write the statement. You're taking a bit of a calculated risk in writing a statement that is ultra creative. And then you show it to some people. You show it to your pre-professional advisor. You show it to your biochem professor. You show it to the doctor that you have been shadowing with, or that you've been working with. You show it to a lot of people, and you say, listen, my objective here is to convey a story about myself that is true to who I am and why it is that I want to enter this profession. But yet I want to, this is a part of my application that I want them to see a bit of a creative side in me, and what else I can bring to the world of medicine. And so I need your opinion. Does this personal statement send an appropriate message that is concise, efficient, professional, but yet it's not too far in one direction? Okay, so I think that's when you just have to start pooling from other people who are writers and working with you on your behalf to help you, support you in your pursuit of going to medical school. All right. Okay, we'll keep moving here. All right, here's the controversial one that I love to kind of talk about. Discuss areas of weakness. Okay. I realize it will come to surprise probably many of you that you're not perfect. Okay. I know. I know. That was a hard pill for me to swallow too when I decided to go to medicine. the truth of the matter is none of us are perfect, okay? We're all very human. If you don't realize that you're not perfect, this is not the career for you, okay? And admissions committees will see right through that, okay? So, now, some people do have some areas of their application that they believe are more pronounced areas of concern and weakness than sort of some just sort of the run-of-the-mill I'm not perfect type things. So examples could be maybe you had a bad sophomore year or a bad freshman year academically. Maybe you had to leave school for a year for a certain life experience. So you've got this gap in your resume that isn't easily explainable in the resume, okay? Things along those lines. I think at some level admissions committees are going to ask about that. They're going to want to know, well gosh, what was going on in this person's life when their grades took the tank, okay? Or I see that it took them 6 years to get through a typical 4 to 5 year bachelor's degree. So what was going on? Why did it take 6 years? Okay, so those sorts of things, I think somewhere in your application, if not in the personal statement, at least maybe in the secondary essays, I mean somewhere in that application you need to be able to explain to admissions committees things that might catch their attention as being not the norm, okay? And not that you're trying to make excuses for some of those things, but you know what? We all have real lives, okay? We all have close personal family members who get ill, and it encompasses our attention and devotion for a certain amount of time. And so we have to make conscious decisions about what's the best behavior to engage in those times. And you know, sometimes grades have to suffer a little bit because I was really needed to help support my family at home during that time. So again, they're not excuses, but at least it provides a life context in which the committee can then at least say, yeah, I can understand why that would be, why someone's grades might have suffered for that year, if that's what they were going through. So again, it puts a humanistic spin on it, okay? The other thing that if if there's something about your application that you need to talk about that has to do with a weakness, try to spin it then into a positive, okay? Yeah, there was this time in which I didn't meet the mark. Not only did I let myself down, but I let those around me down, okay? What did I learn from that experience? How did I grow and mature as an individual from that experience? What was that? How is that growth? How can I apply that growth and maturity to what I'm going to be asked to do in a medical career someday? So yes.
In the application, there's an experiences section.
Yeah.
How do you determine like what to put in your personal statement or in your experience section, and without like kind of repeating yourself, or do you?
I think there's a careful balance there. The way the experience section is set up, it helps to kind of guide you in the types of experiences to list there. Sometimes, and then there's this all sort of encompassing garbage category called other, okay? Some of the things, if you think that it is best categorized as other, maybe that's where you should maybe not list it, and you're gonna talk about that other in your personal statement, okay? But you know, in order to do that, I think one of the things that you want to start thinking about before you even write your personal statement is to start thinking about what are those experiences that I want to include on the resume portion of that application. So, and those experiences typically are categorized into medically related community service, non-medically related community service, leadership, research, tutoring, employment, those sorts of things. So there, and I can't remember off the top of my head how many different categories there are, but the way that part of the application set up, it lends itself to more of a traditional resume type listing of experiences. And as I said, if you have that sort of garbage pail other category, if whatever that experience is best lends itself to being an other, maybe don't list it and put it in the personal statement. Yes?
I'm confused whether or not the secondary, or whether or not the personal statement is included in the primary application with
It
the
is.
resume.
It is. So the personal statement is part of the standard AMCAS application. So there will be, in that application, there's sort of the general demographic stuff. You'll submit your grades and your AMCAT scores to AMCAS. Then you'll have your experiences section that you'll fill out, and then your personal statement, and you'll get that filled out, and then you hit enter.
For the personal statement, you can put whatever you want.
You are not necessarily given any instruction on what to write in that It is basically personal statement, and there you go. They leave that up for you to interpret. Yes?
So just for clarification, should you repeat some of the experiences from your personal statement in those 15 experiences, or?
You know, here's the thing. If it's something that's in your reference section or in your experiences section that you don't believe you've been able to fully describe and talk about the impact of that experience, then I think it's fair game to talk about it more in depth in your personal statement. You know, someone in a previous session said to me, well, you know, what about like a certain hospital hospital volunteering experience that you described, but then there was this sort of sub-experience where there was this very significant interaction that I had with a 4-year-old with a brain tumor. Okay, well, that's the sort of experience. Yes, you're going to talk about that in your personal statement, where it may not lend itself to really developing that in the experience section. Okay, so absolutely, you can have some overlap then, but see, as someone in admissions like me, I would see that as two completely separate concepts or ideas that you're trying to convey there. So yes.
If you're building your essay around a theme like that or a certain experience, how would you work in a weakness? Because it's kind of a totally different.
Sometimes you have to actually break away from your theme a little bit, and you start to do that a little bit towards the end. So, you know, and I think you have a very short paragraph that is 3 to 4 sentences in length, and say, you know, I would be remiss if I didn't spend just a little bit of time talking about what I would perceive as a potential concern on your part. I think it's important that you should be aware that this is what was going on in my life at the time. This is what I learned from that bad decision that I made, you know, and I understand that I will never put myself in that situation again, and I've not since that time. But you sometimes absolutely have to sort of gently break away from your theme in order to address that. So yeah.
Does our entire statement have to be formal, or can there be informal undertones?
I'll get to that here in a little bit. So the question had to do about the formality of the personal statement, and I'll get to that here. And one more question, and then I got to keep moving. Sorry.
Okay, for these 15 points, are these 15 points the standards that all
No.
medical schools refer to?
These are the 15 points that this particular guest lecturer came up with, that through all of his experience of reading over 6,000 applications a year, these are the things that come to my mind that stand out to me. I certainly don't want to stand here and feel like I'm talking on behalf of every medical school admissions committee. But I think that these are things that are important enough that most medical school admissions committees would probably not challenge me on too much. Okay, so, all right. Give yourself enough time. Okay, so what does this mean? What this means to me is that now that you've gone to this conference, that what you're not going to do is pencil in on your calendar next weekend, I'm writing my personal statement. All right? Giving yourself enough time means planning enough in your head, knowing when is it that I'm planning on submitting my application, and then count back 6 months. And that's when you're going to start thinking about this personal statement. That's when you're going to start developing your outline for the content of the things that you want to talk about, okay? And then in that first month, you're going to start writing your first draft, okay? And when that's done, you're going to share it with someone who is an expert writer and say, what do you think? Can you give me some editorial advice? Okay, how can I shorten this? How can I say the same message with not being so verbose? Okay, and then you're going to write your second draft, and then you're going to show it to some more people and say, what do you think? And then you're going to write your third draft, and maybe by that time it's almost ready. Okay, you can't do that in a matter of a few weeks. Okay, so do yourself a favor and start thinking about this way far in advance to submitting your application. I mean, these spots, I don't have to tell you, spots to medical school are highly coveted. Okay, you don't want to do a poor job on a certain area of your application that would risk a committee saying, they didn't really care that much, so why should we care? So yes.
What is the typical length of a personal statement?
Yeah, well, the maximum length is 5,300 characters, okay, including spaces. I would say for someone who has to read 5,300 characters, that's a long personal statement, okay? And I think that if you write one that's that long, you potentially risk losing our interest, okay? So I think, if you write a personal statement that's at least 4,000 characters, it's probably in that right ballpark range where, 4,000 to 4,500. It's long enough that you definitely can convey your message and do it efficiently, but it's not so long that we kind of keep going, okay, when is this going to end?
So is this about a page length?
Single spaced. So, 10-point font, truth of the matter, I mean, it's probably closer to something that's about 2 pages in length, okay? But again, I think, it depends on the word processing program you're using and that sort of thing. So
I don't know what 4,000
characters look like. Well, a lot of times those word processors will have a word count for you and a character count for you. All you got to do is click on the button and it'll tell you. So, you'll write something and then, you kind of gauge where does that fit into this, okay? So it may take, like I'm saying, it may take some practice and give yourself enough time, all right? So keep your writing style simple, okay? Please don't make this overly complex with using really big, fancy English words that the reader might not actually understand and that they'd have to go to the dictionary to figure out what it is that you're trying to convey. So, at the same time, I'm not saying write your personal statement in a level of a third grader. On the other hand, again, you just don't want it so complicated that you lose the essence of what it is you're trying to convey. Yep.
Are you referring to the use of similes and analogies in the essay itself, or is that acceptable?
I'm sorry, explain to me again what you...
If I wanted to use maybe a simile or an analogy throughout my essay to tie it together, would that be
That's
acceptable?
fine. Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, I'm just saying, just keep the style in a very easy-flowing, straightforward manner, okay? Having said that, you also want to avoid a writing style that is too casual, okay? You don't want it to come across as a conversation like you would be having with a colleague at Pete's Coffee House, okay? You want this statement to at least be formal enough and professional enough that it gives the impression to the reader that you care, okay? Sometimes I'll see essays that are written in sort of a conversational style that I say, this is way too informal. This is professional school. We are trying to train young doctors in a professional manner, and if the way you write your personal statement using slang terminology or using sort of very common type language references to certain family members, like there are times I'll read a personal statement that constantly refers to grandma and grandpa, and in my mind I'm kind of going, well, maybe a slightly more professional way would be just refer to someone as their grandmother or grandfather, okay? Using grandma and grandpa is a little bit on the intimate side, I think, for a personal statement, and so it has the potential of sending that. And so, so again, it's professional school, so you just want to make sure you're using appropriate professional language. Okay, this is one of those that I feel stupid that I have to tell you guys. Okay, please check your spelling, not Tory spelling, but the spell check on your word processor. Okay, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I'll read personal statements that are loaded with misspelled words and poor grammar. Okay, and think about that. Think about what kind of message that sends to a committee on admissions. Okay, what it sends is that a message of that you were hurried and that you were rushed and you didn't care and that you didn't pay attention to detail. And think about what a really horrible medical doctor that could be, someone who doesn't care and doesn't pay attention to detail. Okay, that's not the kind of people we want graduating from medical school. All right, so please do yourself a favor. Click spell check. Yes, it might take you 10 minutes to go through all the misspelled words, but it's time well spent. So, and this is the other thing that I feel silly telling you guys about, but please start a new paragraph when indicated on your personal statement. Again, I can't even begin to tell you how many times I'll look at a personal statement that is one giant 5,300 character statement in one paragraph. Okay. As someone who's a reader of personal statements, that is a really hard personal statement for me to stay focused on, okay? Because you can't follow, it's hard to follow transitions of thought process throughout that application in that statement, okay? So please do yourself a favor and actually put in paragraph indentations when you're transitioning to a new thought process within the theme of your personal statement. Again, it's just too hard for someone to try to stay focused on. And if your statement is sort of logistically difficult to read, then again, you've just shot yourself in the foot. Okay, you want to be able to communicate your message effectively to committees on admissions. Okay. All right, we're getting close. Okay. Avoid overdoing it. Okay. Again, part of that has to do with, don't rehash your personal statement. Okay. By overdoing it, don't be overly self-congratulatory. Don't pat yourself way too much on your back. Okay. Because, part of it is, you do want to, in your application, talk about, the great things that you bring to the table to becoming a doctor, but, you can take it too far, okay? And the same mechanism, don't be overly self-deprecating when talking about your weaknesses, okay? No one wants to read a personal statement that over half of it is spent you trying to justify why it is that you got a C in organic chemistry, okay? So, avoid sort of the overdoing it in your application. Avoid hyperbole if you can, okay? As I always tell people, I wish I had a dime for every time I read a personal statement that included the thought process of, man, that was the most mind-blowing experience that I had, and that's why I wanted to be a doctor. And it's like, in my mind, I'm trying to figure out and listen to this person tell me and actually use the word mind-blowing experience. And what does that mean to him or her? Because it probably means something completely different to me in my generation. So anyway, so, avoid the hyperbole, avoid just overdoing it if you can. Be concise. Sorry, yes?
Going back to that, overdoing it, what about like beliefs or like things that you believe or value, stating those?
Can you be more specific about that?
Like, I believe that this, no.
Okay, well, here's the thing. If you think that belief or value system is consistent with you providing, being a humanistic physician, then I think that's fine. I would say, but if that if that conveying that belief or value system has significant religious or political content to it, I would run away from that. Okay, this is not the time to take that calculated risk. Okay, all right. Be concise. To me, that means be efficient. Okay, if you've got a sentence in your personal statement that's 30 words, I can almost promise you, you could probably shorten it by at least 50% and still convey the message that you're trying to convey and not lose the essence of who you are. Okay, so I'd much rather read a very powerful, short personal statement than one that's just overly verbose. Avoid cliches, okay? I constantly will read in personal statements, I want to become a doctor because I like science and I want to help people. Okay, well, yes, we hear that all the time. But you know what, do yourself a favor and then ask the next question, which is why, okay? So why is it that I like science and why is it that I like to help people, okay? And take it another step further. Because I think most of us who are in medicine realize that it's more than just about science and wanting to help people, okay? There's certain things that that are very attractive to you in this career choice. And so what is it about helping people that is very satisfying to you, okay? So, yes?
Do you have an example of a good why I want to be a doctor? Sample answer. That really said, wow.
I think that the good answer to why I want to be a doctor has to do with going into the field for the right reasons, okay? And I think only the applicant can figure out what are the right reasons. I think that there are, clearly there's a group and a following of us in medicine who want to, who understand that in order to be a good doctor, you have to be a caring and compassionate person, and that you demonstrate a hard working ethic, and that I understand that in as strong as our healthcare system is in America, there are some things about it that are less attractive. And so what are the problems that we face in medicine, and how is it that I see myself being a part of that solution, okay? So, I mean, I think those are the sorts of things that if you convey that type of character and motivation to going into medicine, then that's a better answer than I like science and I want to help people, okay? So, and the last thing here, avoid passive voice expressions, okay? So passive voice meaning, the mouse was eaten by the cat as opposed to the active voice, the mouse ate the cat, okay? Passive voice in your writing can come across as being very drab and dull and dry and disinteresting to the reader. And so if you can write in more of an active voice, that grabs the attention of the reader and leaves them to feel more compelled to continue to read. But if you write in a passive voice, again, it's just sort of a writing manner or a writing style that is not very interesting to read from the receiver's end. Yes?
Would you suggest not using contractions?
I'm sorry, would I suggest?
Contractions.
Not using contraction. No, I think you can, that's fine to use them. Yeah, so,
Is it better to talk about like an experience that relates to the mission statement of the type of schools that you're going to, or just the experience that was really?
Yeah, no, so that's a great question, because what she's asking about is writing in your personal statement things that are attractive to the mission statements of many of the medical schools that you're applying to, okay? Sometimes that's a better thing to do. Well, here's how I'd answer that. I think yes. I think in your personal statement you have to address the things that are important to you in becoming a future healthcare provider, and what is it that what are your personal goals? Okay. Now, with that in mind, usually your secondary essays will lend themselves for you to further develop that with each medical school on a more independent basis then, okay? So, so with regards to your personal statement, I think absolutely you can go along those lines, but you have to just make sure that you're being very true and honest to yourself, because if you're writing a mission or writing a personal statement based on what you think people want to hear, then and you've got nothing in your or you've got very little in your experience section to back that up, you're kind of sticking your head in a guillotine to get stuck in a corner with an admissions committee that is going to really question what you're saying is true. So yes.
What is the average age and background of the readers?
What is the average age? You know, that's a great question. That's going to vary from school to school. Okay. At my school, we tend to have my screeners are probably about 10 years younger than 10 to 15 years younger than I am, and I'm 45. Okay, so they have, let's just say they have enough experience and maturity under their belt to know what we're looking for, but they're not so inexperienced that.
The educational background. Education background,
yes,
education background or medical background?
No, not, educational. Yeah. Yeah. So, yes.
How long do you guys take to read the personal statements, and do you really read it in completeness?
Yeah, yeah. No, no. The answer to that is all of the above. Okay. Clear. There are some, and again, it varies from school to school. But when you think about it, like I said, I get 6,000 or more applications every year for 200 spots. I've got to figure out a way to make sure that every application is given its fair, due review. Okay, and how can I do that efficiently? Okay, so we look at, we try to do this in a holistic manner. We look at academic metrics, we look at experiences, we look at the character that you bring with those experiences, and we try to weigh all those things equally. Now, in an unfortunate world, the academic metrics are the most they're not subjective, they're the most tangible way of, of looking at some things. And so, if an academic metric background is so concerning that we have concerns about one's ability to get through a rigorous medical curriculum, then, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what you have to say probably in your personal statement and your activities section, because it's not going to be enough to probably overcome an admissions committee's concerns about you flunking out of medical school. And that's a wasted time and resource on everyone's level. We don't want to set people up for failure. We want to say the toughest thing about medical school is getting in. And once you get in, we want to do everything in our ability to make you successful. And so if your academic metrics raise significant concern about that, we probably aren't going to spend a whole lot of time looking at some of those other things. If there's a belief that your academic metrics are consistent with being able to get through medical school, then we absolutely are going to look at your activities and your characteristics very thoroughly. So with that, I think I'm going to try to wrap this up. Clearly, if people have any other questions, I'm happy to stick around a little bit and I'll answer them one-on-one. Otherwise, I'm happy to address anything further.